Buenos dias. Buenos dias.
Killed it.
So one of the big concerns for a lot of cruisers is handling the weather, being prepared for that. What systems do you use for that?
That's interesting. For us, we've gone cruising a couple times, and so our first time out cruising was a 2-year adventure about 15 years ago. And so it's been interesting for us to compare and contrast. The same issues were there. Everybody worried about weather, you worried about communication, and certainly over the course of 15 years, some technologies changed and some different things worked. I think in response to your question, we probably use the same sources everybody is tapping into. Number one for us is we try to find the local connection, because we found, particularly with coastal cruising, either in the States or in Mexico, local conditions are so variable. And so although we'll look at Windy as an app, or we use Predict Wind as another one we'll use on passages, oftentimes those give a good macro weather sense, and we feel like they help us make sure we're not sticking our nose out into an impending bad big storm or a big swell. But as far as the getting from point A to point B along the coast, those local resources have proven to be most dependable for us. We, on our previous cruise, like everyone told us to do, installed single sideband, use a backdoor modem, download grip files, all of that stuff you can do with that technology. At the time, I think that was the best alternative for us, but quite frankly, we found that we used that less than we expected to. And so on this cruise, we intentionally chose not to install a single sideband. In most locations, since we left Puget Sound and all the way into Mexico, and when we're coastal cruising and you have reasonable access to cell phone coverage, we can tap into online resources of Predict Wind, windy.com, windytv.com. I mean, there's a whole list of apps out there, and you can get access to the models easily that way. We did decide to add a satellite communication capability, which was the big change for us. And we use a small portable Garmin inReach approach, and we interface the Garmin inReach with our iPad and iPhone. And so we find that we can communicate using text and email. We can keep our loved ones informed about where we are and where we're going.
That's great.
And we can get the weather data that we think is relevant. And that, coupled with getting on the VHF radio and connecting with the people that are close by, give you that kind of local flavor to the weather.
That's great. So one of the big changes with all the new technologies, a lot of people are opting to use iPads instead of a standard chart plotter. Do you have a preference to use?
Well, that is interesting, because you see a lot of people who have migrated in that direction. And when we were cruising 15 years ago, it's interesting in that the prevailing navigation tools were usually a laptop, usually a PC-based software of some sort, and ironically you'd spend a lot of time in port trading chart packs on CDs that people handed around. But you're right, it's been interesting to watch the evolution of amazing tools built into dedicated chart plotters, while at the same time very inexpensive options that you can throw onto your iPad as an app. We tend to be a little bit eclectic. I like to have redundancy on board, and I like to have systems that are independent. So although we try to keep it simple, the reality is we have 2 dedicated chart plotters, and I think we have 3 or 4 iPads on board.
Wow.
And because it doesn't cost anything, really,
Yeah.
We load up the iPads with navigation software, and they're there.
Like Navionics? Or
Navionics, CMAP charts. There are a number of apps. All of them have their pros and cons. Quite frankly, I see that more as a backup, because what works easiest for us is we have a dedicated chart plotter at the nav station down below, and we have a small chart plotter at the steering station up above. They are two different brands. One's a Garmin, one's a standard Horizon. They run independently. Only one of them is integrated with our B&G instrument package. So that gives us that ability to have all that nifty data all integrated, and the GPS is informing the wind instruments, and we can use that for sailing performance. But I also like the fact that at the same time that system's running, we have an independent chart plotter running at the steering station, so we can always be comparing and contrasting. And when inevitably something breaks, good news is most of the time everything doesn't break at the same time. And so I guess generally I would say we have a bias towards dedicated chart plotters.
Is the radar integrated, or is that separate?
And that's where we're a little bit old school, in that I get on newer boats and see the fully integrated multifunction display where you're overlaying your radar under your chart. I find that very, very cool. We haven't installed that kind of system because I tend to be a little more conservative about wanting to have independent functionality. I think the technology has probably left me in the dust a little bit there, in that I need to let go of some of that old school stuff, because I think there are some real advantages and some cool capabilities in terms of managing your travels and the safety of your boat by being able to put all that data together. But for us, the radar stands alone. It does share data with the GPS, so it enhances the capability of the radar, but it's an independent display. And the good news is the energy demands of those systems are low enough that it really doesn't cost us too much on the energy system side to be running those systems independently. Oh, comparing 15 years ago to now in terms of the technology of sailing, I would say by far the biggest difference is AIS. When we were cruising 15 years ago, if there was any AIS out here at all, it was big commercial ships. No one had AIS, and now it is so pervasive. And so one of the tools that we really enjoy having, with a couple of caveats, but we use a Vesper Marine Watchmate AIS, their black box solution that incorporates a Wi-Fi network for the boat. So by plugging our other data sources into the Vesper Marine system, all of that data can end up on any Wi-Fi enabled device. The one thing we actually use our iPhone or our iPad for is a Wi-Fi connection to that system, because what that gives us is a dedicated AIS screen that you can have wherever you are. You can be laying in your berth at night and put the anchor watch on if you're in a nasty place and the wind's really blowing, and your iPhone will beep at you if you start to wander
It's a
at
great
all.
safety feature.
So it's a great safety feature, and so I would say AIS has become almost 100%, which is its limitation. I think it is such a great technology. It gives you so much data, not only about your own boat, but the boats around you, that it can be a little bit enticing to assume it's got everything for everybody. And obviously the pongas that are running around out here in Mexico,
They haven't adopted that.
they haven't adopted AIS, so you still got to use your eyeballs and all the
Absolutely.
tools. But I would say between 15 years ago and today, the biggest change has been the availability of AIS, and particularly products like the Vesper Marine and others that incorporate a Wi-Fi distribution, because then you eliminate all the wires and connectivity.
So can your family see where you are at any time?
Well, you know, the tool that is amazing because it's so, you know, for $350 you buy a Garmin InReach device, and it's become part of our regular routine. Whenever we're on the boat and the boat leaves the dock, we turn on the Garmin, and it every 10 minutes is sending a satellite signal. And it's funny, you find out who your friends and family are that are really paying attention to what you're doing out there in the world, because we'll get funny little text messages of, hey, I saw you move from Nuevo Vallarta to La Cruz.
Oh, you're still the
yesterday."
dock, I noticed.
Yes, so yes, we use the Garmin InReach technology as the easiest way to
That's a nice feature. That's great.
let people know where we are
Yeah.
and where we're going.
That's good.
Okay, so cooking on a small boat presents many challenges. So our tiny little galley here, once you put the stove up, there's your refrigerator, you have very limited space to do prep. So you end up doing it on the table
Yeah.
or inside of a Tupperware container. Do a lot of chopping that way. But my secret weapon is my pressure cooker. So, I don't know if you've used pressure cookers.
I do.
But
rice and beans.
yeah, rice, spaghetti. You can do one pot spaghetti.
Yeah.
So yeah, my pressure cooker is a hit down there. I brought one down this year with me, a kind of a smallish one that's hidden away inside of our little cabinets
That's
here.
nice.
And the barbecue. So
Keeps the heat out of the cabin. Too.
keeps the heat out of the cabin. But I find cooking down here challenging.
Yeah. Do you use the oven at all?
I used it the other day for a lasagna that I bought at the Sunday market.
Okay.
But it was pretty good.
No microwave either.
No microwave.
Yeah.
No microwave. Small little ice box. No freezer. So things, you know, have a limited lifespan in there.
Yeah.
But we use box milk and...
Eggs? Do you refrigerate?
Oh, no, I do not refrigerate eggs. How about you?
Yeah.
No? Leave the eggs out? Great eggs. And, you know, to go out is fairly inexpensive here in Mexico.
I'm sailing, a touch of liberty. I'm sailing, a glimpse of eternity. All my dreams came true. Now my dreams are you. Feel the breeze to touch the sky. I'm sailing, breathe the liberty. I'm sailing.